So a scope and a closure determines how and where variables are accessible in your code. So we will cover the local and the global scope, the lexical scope, and how closures work with a practical example. So let's jump in. Welcome back, guys. It's day 9 of our JavaScript series. So an example number 1 is for understanding the local and global scope. First up, in JavaScript, scope refers to the current context of execution, which determines where variables and functions are accessible. There are two main types of scope, the global and the local scope. So number 1 is the global scope. When you declare a variable outside of any function, it is in the global scope, meaning it can be accessed anywhere in your code. For example, we declare global var I am global, and then we call a function show global display console.log global var. So, and then we now call the function outside show global. So this example will output I am global, since the global var is defined outside any function, so it is accessible inside the show global function. Our next example is the local scope. On the other hand, the variables declared inside the functions are called the local scope, meaning that they are only accessible within that function. For example, function local scope. An example of local scope. Then we declare let local var. Let the local var be I am local. That is the local var, and then we print it dot log local var, the local var, and then we close. So after here, this is where we call the local example function, the local example function, and then we say let's run this. So in this one, the local var is only available within the local scope example. Here, the local var is only available within the local scope example function. So trying to access it outside the function will result in an error. So if we try to print it here, if we try to say console.log, and then we print the local var, it will result in an error. So let's try. You see there is an error because the local var is not defined. It will tell us that the local var is not defined. So if we delete this and try to run it again, it is now okay. I am local. You will see I am local. This one. Yeah, that is the code, and it runs well. Next is the lexical scope. So now that we have covered the local and the global scope, let's talk about the lexical scope. So a lexical scope means that JavaScript determines a variable scope at the time the code is running or the code is written, not when it's executed. Yeah. So for example, we just work with the examples. Function outer, function then we declare let outer var be I am from outer. I am from outer, and then we declare another function inner, and then we print the outer var, and then we call the inner function, and after here we call the outer function. Call the outer function. So in this example, the inner function can access the outer var. It can access the outer var from the outer function. Yeah, from the outer function. Even though it is not defined in the inner function, that is so that is the lexical scope. Functions have accessed the variables in the scope where they were created. Yeah. So now let's look at the closures and the example. So a closure is a function. It is a function that remembers the variables from its outer scope. From its outer scope, even after the outer function has finished executing. So for example, function make counter and then we declare the count equals to 0, and then we return a function count plus plus. Count plus plus, return the count. And then after here, we let counter equals to make counter. Equals to make counter. So console.log counter that is printing. So in this example, the make counter returns a function that increments and returns count. it increments and return count. So even after make counter has finished executing, it will increment it. So the return function still access the count because of the closure. This is the power of closures. They let you to preserve and access variables from the outer scope even after the scope has closed. Even after the scope has closed. You see. Yeah, that is it. This one will give us 3. 1, 2, 3. Yes, because we have printed it multiple times. Our last part is a practical example of closures. Practical example of closures. So let's see closures in this way. So creating a function that remembers different configurations. For instance, you could create multiple greeting functions that each remember a different name. So let me give us this example I had written. Function create greeting, and then the name, and then we return function console dot log hello plus the name plus the exclamation mark. That is the first part. And then the next part is let's greet let greeting be for Alice. Then next is let greeting be for Bob. And then now we call the function greet Alice, and then we greet Bob. So each function or each greeter, the greeter function, each greeter function remembers the name passed to the create greeter when it was created. So closures make this example or this example possible, allowing each function to hold on to its own variables from its creation time. So let us see Alice and Bob. Alice and Bob. Let's see where there is an error. Alice and Bob. That is it. So that is it for today, day 9. And if you found this video, or if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notification. See you in our next episode. Bye.